Welcome to Godot Unscripted, a podcast on the Godot ecosystem. If you've been around Godot for a while, you've probably heard of Bitbrain, aka Miguel. He's a tech lead YouTuber and has been building an untitled RPG with Godot. Did I mention he is also a skilled pixel artist? Miguel has also contributed to the community by creating Godot add-ons and templates to make developers and game jammers' life easier. Miguel, it is a pleasure to have you here. How the hell are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, actually. Very at peace now that we got this working. And I'm really looking forward to this podcast and all the topics we have. I hope we can get through them all.
Yeah, I'm also very excited. I'm also very excited. Yeah, I really like what you're doing here, and I think it's important to bring the word out and show everyone what Godot has to offer. I think I really like this.
Thank you so much. I wanted to focus on interviewing developers, less from a technical standpoint, more from a, who are you as a person? What brought you to Godot? And what does your future look like? I think it's very nice to humanize the people that use the engine because it gives us that little bit of connection.
Yes, definitely.
All right, where to start? I guess let's start by... Right now, you are developing an RPG, you are a tech lead, you are a YouTuber, but going way back in time, can you remember when your interest in games started?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I've always been a playful person in terms of trying to create games, not in a computer sense, but more generally. I think it started in the young age when I was 5 or 6 years old and I played with Lego. Because what I effectively did, I even played on my own with Lego figures, but I wouldn't just play. I would create basically a game world in my head, and I came up with rules, what should happen. I came up with the characters, and then I tried to play with the Lego following these rules. Effectively a bit like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
My own version. But I don't know, like, it really frustrated me that I was the only person who could see the magic in my head. I was like, yeah, this is really happening, but it was very difficult to share this with others. And I think this is, where I discovered that computer games really allow people like us to share the vision in a visual sense. Yeah.
Right. I completely share that. My interest with games began in the same way. And before I even knew what Dungeons and Dragons was, I was just talking to my friends and seeing them in front of paper and saying, you have these skills, you have these opportunities, what do you want to do? And trying to create these worlds in people's heads. And as you say, it was very frustrating not being able to telepathically show them how incredible, how full of possibility this was. And the magic and the rules of the world, very important as well.
Yeah, I think the rules, this was so fun because I think we all played GTA 2 or games like that with cheats, right? And we all had God mode in the game, and it's fun to have no rules. Like, it's fun, but only for the first 2 hours. And then you're kind of like, why is this not fun forever? And you realize actually how important restrictions and limitations are. And I actually enjoy this the most in game development, to work actually with the limits and not with the freedom. Yeah.
Really? That's very interesting. I would like to put a pin in that and definitely come back to it later. But first, you say that when you start creating these worlds with Legos, you realized time afterwards that games allowed you the opportunity to communicate those worlds better. Did you immediately go from pen and paper Legos to the computer? Or were there like some steps in between?
So I wrote my first line of code when I was 18. So I actually started quite late with coding. I don't know why, but I think I actually didn't expect it to be doable. Like, I thought, like, to be a developer, you need to be a smart wizard or something, And at that time, I thought I'm not like some crazy guy who studied or anything. Because I didn't study at that point. And from the age of 5 to the age of 18, I actually used art as a medium to experiment with ideas. So I used pencil and paper. Yeah. And one thing I did in school, because I found school extremely boring, I don't know, I was sitting in class and I was extremely disengaged. But what I would usually do is I would put a sheet of paper in front of me and I would start drawing spaceships, top-down perspective spaceships. I would give them little weapon systems, and then I would draw enemies, and I would basically emulate turns. So it was like turn-based combat. But then my colleagues from school, they would see that and they would join in. So they would also draw their own map, and then we would do like PvP on paper. And that was so fun. And I was like, I don't know, 13 years old when I did this.
That's so cool. And did you always take on the role of the dungeon master, so to speak?
Good question. I think I like the immersion. So depending on what was the most immersive, I would either create my own story or join another story. What I find frustrating often is that when you are joining another story, often things don't go like you want them to, and you even disagree with it. True. And especially, I remember we were playing with Legos as kids, and we would actually bring the Lego sets we owned to our friend's house, and we would organize like a huge battle, and it lasted like for a week. We would actually have sleepovers and do the Lego battle. I remember at one time, one of my childhood friends, he basically created himself an OP character, and his character was extremely OP. And we were like, wait, but ours are not OP. And it's like, well, mine is OP. That's the character I'm playing. And
bullshit.
And in these moments, I wish, like, you know, we should establish like joint rules. Like, you can't have that. Sorry, you can't have that.
Yes, exactly.
But, yeah, like 9-year-old kids, you know, we want it our way. So, yeah.
Exactly. What are you gonna do? Oh man, I'm so glad to know I wasn't alone. I remember that. I was one of those kids when I was 6 years old. I had dinosaurs. We all played with dinosaurs. But mine, of course, had a laser. Everyone else was just role-playing normal dinosaurs. No. Mine had lasers and destroyed everyone. It was OP. What can you do? But later on, when I actually started playing D&D, I always thought, I don't like this because the rules are not consistent. Rules should be consistent and apply to everyone consistently. I digress. I am impressed that you mentioned that you started doodling already and doing art from the age of 13. Because, again, you wrote your first line of code at 18. But nowadays you're a tech lead, right? And you do all this work for Godot and all these add-ons and all these scripts. Is there anywhere where we can view your beautiful hand-drawn art? I know about the Pixel one, which is also fantastic. But do you have your hand-drawn art anywhere?
I'm still searching for it, to be honest. Because I moved country, so I live in the UK nowadays for 8 years now. My childhood home is in Germany, so it's not that easy that they are laying there on a pile in my childhood room. So sure. I'm afraid they were lost with time, but yeah.
Oh man. Did you remember at what age you stopped drawing on pen and paper and when you started doing pixel art on the computer? Was there an overlap or was there a space between those two?
So I think I started with pixel art quite late because it wasn't something where I was saying, no, I'm going to do pixel art. And I purposely started pixel art. But what I basically did is I wanted to build games and I drew assets. And I used to draw with GIMP, just some assets. But visually, I found the appearance of the games awful. The first games I've created, I hated the appearance.
Oh no!
Because it was too amateurish, you know.
Yeah.
But then I realized, hang on a minute, I can use pixel art, intentionally scale up the pixels, and then it looks actually good. It doesn't look terrible. And this is how I then went, well, let's just do pixel art. That's my thing now. And then I do just pixel art, nothing else.
That's crazy. And they just honed it and honed it and honed it over time. Because nowadays, the pixel art work that you do dailies. And I've seen how you promote dailies on your Discord as well in this community. How did this evolve? How did you join this? And how have you seen your skill change over time?
First of all, I think every serious artist who is very serious about their work by default thinks that they are the worst and they suck. You know, I think this is just to get this out of the way. Like when I look at my own pixel art, I always find somebody else whose art is 10 times better. And I always feel like, nah, I'm actually not that good. Come on. But this also is this helps me to, I don't know, to improve and try to find ways to make it better. But it's very difficult to understand the curriculum or whatever you want to call it. Basically, how do you actually know in which order you should learn what, and how do you even learn it? Should you just draw?
Exactly.
What if you repeat the same mistakes over time? Like, you need to get feedback. And I don't know, I found Pixel Dailies extremely helpful for this because it really forces you into this 1 day time limit. You also share it with the public and you can also ask for feedback. Yeah, I can just recommend if you want to get into pixel art. I started doing Pixel Dailies and I also watched the pixel art tutorials by Peter Milko on YouTube. Very recommended. He really does a very good job to explain to you how you can create beautiful pixel art with minimal effort.
Surprising, because in general, I think with what most self-taught artists struggle with is, as you say, the general curriculum, because you learn the basics of, for example, color theory, right? Not necessarily things that are shown in YouTube videos regarding a specific discipline of art. Not only that, but later on composition, and later on and the artistic style and how to be cohesive, which is what I found most difficult, right? When you create a game, sure, it's easy to do one asset here, one asset there. Sure, it's easy to do it here to a color palette, so to speak. But it gets increasingly difficult as you have to maintain a specific art style.
Yes.
Right?
I also found for me that when I just draw for fun, I don't really feel like I'm improving or I'm unlocking any new skills. It's very weird. Like, I'm just drawing and I feel like, oh, I've drawn this 10,000 times. Like, I'm not improving. This is not going anywhere. What I found is when joining game jams, for example, and there's a tight time limit and you literally are forced to improvise. Like, after the game jam is over, you are wondering, oh my God, how did I actually draw this? Like, what? I created this? I had this a couple of times during game jams that I was actually unable to replicate it afterwards, what I created.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah. And I think it's not necessarily like a skill issue, but more of a motivation issue, where when I just try to sit down and draw, it's very difficult for me to do that. I need some sort of purpose.
Yeah.
The drawing needs to be connected to some higher goal why I'm doing it.
Right. I also think it might have to do with, right, if you have, for example, 5 minutes, you have the pressure, you do it, but you also don't have the time to obsess over it, to ask yourself, that pixel doesn't look good, maybe I should change the entire thing, and then someone is like, no, I don't like it. It's a skill to finish things, right? And a skill to publish them and be like, it's out there now. And I think that's what really helps a lot of the time in growing, since I know many artists or many people who try pixel art, such as myself, where you just obsess over the same piece that's not even that complicated, right? Something 32 by 32 or 16 by 16, very simple, like a door. And then you obsess over how it looks, the shading, and you spend hours upon hours and days upon days on such a simple thing. Where what you should do is like, okay, finish next. So you keep on learning and your brain has time to process that while you sleep.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to ask you then, talking about art, did you consciously decide on an art style for the Untitled RPG you're developing, or did it just kind of happen?
Good question. I think it's a very organic process. It wasn't that I immediately knew this is what it needs to look like. I think I started from a very minimalistic starting point. One of the huge inspirations for me personally is Coke and Code. I don't know if you know them, but
No.
they created this game called, I think, Legends of Yore and Heroes of Yore. And they're like games with like very tiny little pixel art characters. And he was building games in 2010 already, when I barely started with game development. And I saw this pixel art style, and it was almost too simple. It almost was like, wait, you can't do that. Why is the character just like 4 pixels with 2 dots? Like, what are you doing?
That's illegal.
Like, what? And I was so blown away by how you, with the least possible amount of pixels, can achieve so much. And also it looked very cute. And I think this was a massive inspiration for my pixel art style. But in terms of discovering what is the unique art style of the game, it was a process. I think I knew it. I wanted something dark and something more serious, but also pixel art, and it should look cute but serious. And eventually I came to this idea having something like 80s dark fantasy, like the Dark Crystal or Labyrinth, or when you know these like 80s movies, dark fantasy movies with like puppets, having that in a pixel art style with cute little characters, and then having like a serious Diablo 2 atmosphere to it. I really like this combination of cute and evil.
Gotcha. You mentioned that when you saw Legends of Yore or Heroes of Yore. I'm looking at Legends of Yore right now. I love it. It looks so cute. But when you saw this game, did this also push you beyond, what do we call it earlier? It wasn't perfectionism, but beyond this thought of like, let's get it good enough so that you could start publishing your own games or your own game jams?
I think I just wanted to bring something to life. Like I had some ideas and I needed a way to make them work. And I think with this art style, it's extremely fast how you can iterate. Like a new character, unless we talk about like sophisticated animations, but usually you can very quickly throw something together, especially in an amazing engine like Godot, where it's very easy. Within like a few minutes, you can have a game running with mechanics. Yeah, so I think naturally this is also why most indie games are pixel art, because it's very easy to get going. You don't need to be a 3D artist.
Good,
yeah.
Yeah. All right. We've talked about your artistic journey, at least a part of it. Let's talk about your programming journey. You mentioned you wrote your first line of code at 18. When did you write your first line of game code?
Oh, this was also when I was 18. So.
Oh, okay.
I remember I was sitting in school and the first programming language I would actually try was Delphi Pascal. And we used some visual tool for it. And we had some typical exercises like draw a clock that ticks in real time, or create like a ball simulation. But I found this not very interesting personally. So in my free time, I just went and created a game with it. And I had no experience with programming whatsoever. So to create multiple characters, I would literally copy paste hundreds lines of codes multiple times and do like find replace. They have like multiple multiple NPCs in the game. But yeah, this was when I was 18. Yeah.
It's the age-old adage, right? If it works, it works.
Yes.
Is this game also lost to time?
I think it still exists because I found my old Dropbox account.
Ooh.
And there is still some very ancient stuff on there from back in the day. I might share it with you at some point.
It might be fantastic to look at. Just as I always like seeing the beginnings, right? Of where people come from. It's even more, what should I call it? It helps you like connect with people so much, in my opinion. That's why I always like to see how people have evolved throughout the years.
Totally.
And then how was your journey with programming afterwards? When did you discover game engines, and how did that process look like?
I think so. The first thing I did, I learned Java and Delphi Pascal at my school in Germany, because I did like a 3-year education program, which was a combination of like A-level and technical specialists in IT. And as part of that, you learn how to solder microchips, basically use assembly to program them, networking, programming routers and switches and things like that. And as part of that, I also learned Java and Delphi Pascal and assembly. But I don't know, I was kind of fixated on the programming, so I bought a huge book called C++ Primer with over 1,300 pages as an 18-year-old. And I read it all. And then I used SDL, or Simple Direct Media Layer, or library, Simple Direct Media something library. I used that then to create my first game in C++. So before I created a game in Delphi, Pascal, and then I created a game in C++, which was like a marble game with marbles.
Insane.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's really impressive. I say that because I tried learning C++ a couple of times in the past few years, and I just hit a brick wall over and over. It's impressive to me that you also, right? As you say, Delphi, Pascal, assembly. Assembly's a nightmare. Never forget Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah. Oh yes. Including graphic interfaces. I don't know how they pulled that off.
It was just one guy, right?
Yes.
That's even the craziest part. He's my deity for indie game development.
Yes.
Anyways, you went to C++. Then what followed?
So then I did a lot of Java because I studied in the Netherlands for 4 years. There is a dedicated university program for software engineering. So it's not just informatics, because in Germany you mostly can just study informatics and it's very math heavy and very theoretical. And in the Netherlands they put a focus on practical experience and hands-on experience. So for 4 years I went there to university, and as part of that we did a lot of Java. Java was, I think, one of the key areas. And as part of Java I discovered, of course, Minecraft. So Minecraft is also written in Java, and Minecraft is using a game framework under the hood. The same game framework I also tried out, but I found it a bit too cumbersome. But then I discovered libgdx, and libgdx is effectively a wrapper around the same library that Minecraft uses. With libgdx I actually created then more games in Java, which was fine. I even tried a very large game to build a procedurally generated space game.
I love it. Ambitious.
Like an infinite universe with chunk system and everything. But the problem basically is that with libgdx it was very difficult to pull off. I don't know. I found it extremely hard. Yeah. Eventually I abandoned libgdx.
Oh no. And all throughout this time you were still developing games.
Yes.
And does this have the overlap with itch.io? Because I know that one of the first games on itch is called Cloudboy, and you need to have Java installed on your computer for it to actually.
Yes, that's still a libgdx game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the main problem I think I had was there were a lot of technical concerns, rendering and compatibility, and especially with physics, you need to like ship the C library, the dynamic libraries, and it's like extremely cumbersome. So I couldn't really focus on building the games, but a lot of it was about people on itch leaving a reply like, hey, this game doesn't run on my specific CPU.
Yeah.
And then I had to like debug the libgdx codes, why that might be. And eventually I was just, I just want to use a game engine. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And you landed in Godot 1.0? No. Game Maker, Unity? Where did it go?
I think I watched a couple of tutorials. This was 2020, around February 2020.
Oh, this is really recent. Okay.
Yeah, this is where I discovered Godot. I watched a couple of tutorials. I was like, okay, let's use a game engine. And then I looked online, and I remember I think I was even doing Global Game Jam at that time. It was still using libgdx at that time. And I even created my own little wrapper around libgdx called BrainGDX, which would allow me during game jams to spin up things very quickly. But let me remember, then I stumbled upon DevDuck, like a devlog on YouTube. I watched him still working on this iOS game that he was building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also saw him working on this game with a polar bear, and I love winter and the north. So I was like, oh my god, like, I want to do this too. And he was using Unity at the time. Then I tried Unity for, I think, a couple of weeks. But then I think I saw this video by Heartbeast where he was using Godot engine, and then DevDuck also used Godot engine. And I was like, oh, like Godot.
This is the engine.
Try it. And yeah, the first time trying Godot, it was just mind-blowing to me how intuitive it was. How little bloat, how little UI is actually in the way. You can just build your stuff. Yeah, I really like that as a first
Yeah.
experience.
It's incredible. Drag 3 nodes, one script, game done.
Yeah.
For a simple one, at least. I am so shocked because I think I heard about Godot the same way. Not so far back, but I think the first instance of that I have from exposure to Godot was DevDoc, but when he was already on the new game, on the newest one that he's still working on. And then also from Heartbeast. And I'm like, I don't like Unity. Godot looks nice. Not for any technical reasons, mind you. I'm just like, Godot looks nicer. I don't know. I like it more. And that's how I started using it as well. And the rest is history.
Yes.
What was your first game with Godot?
My very first game was Cave. Yeah.
Ooh, I have it open right now. It's
Yeah.
The logo is just impressive by itself, right?
Thank you. So basically, I'm working on this game for 4 years now. I basically didn't stop working on this game. I basically never. I still did other games like for game jams, and I have some ideas and some add-ons, but this is my hobby, this game. That's what I do in my free time.
That's what's so crazy to me. Why is it not... I'm sorry, this is just business games talking, but why is it not on Steam for €1 or, I don't know, €3? And you constantly update it, right? I'm wondering if you do it more as you say, a project hobby that you don't want to monetize, or because you're waiting for a time to actually publish it, or because it's, again, a small project, and then eventually you'll actually make a big project for Steam.
It's a very good question. I think initially I didn't really see it going anywhere. It was more like a playground or like a sandbox for me to build this game. And I used my YouTube channel that I set up to document that. And then I saw it got some traction, more than I actually anticipated. And I was just like working on it. But the problem was I wasn't like knowing at that point what this game is going to be. Because it's just mining in a cave and forging and that's it, you know? And I was like, okay, what is this? Is this like a 3D? Is it like a top-down Minecraft with dwarves? Like, what is this? So I had a very honest monologue with myself about 2 years ago. And I decided to pivot away from the original idea of having this like infinite procedure-generated game, but instead focusing on a very specific experience that I want to tell. And I really focus on the dwarves. And to make this happen, I want to build a demo, like a demo game. Probably like an hour worth of playtime or 2 hours. I don't know yet. But my ideas with this demo, I can go even on game expos or even on Steam. I can create a Steam page for it and people can play it. But the problem basically is to get there, it's a lot of work. And I don't have the time to work on it full time. I'm just doing this like, I don't know, 1 day a week for a couple of hours. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. And you like your job, right?
Oh, yes. And also, of course, money is also a big factor generally, that from a logical perspective, trying to like quit your job and go full time, it's a very, very bad idea, generally.
Yeah.
Even if you think your game is amazing, it will. Chances are it will still, like, if it does good. Yeah, if it does good, let's say you make $80,000 with it, 80,000 on Steam, right? Steam takes a cut, and then I don't know. At the end then when you work maybe 2 years on it, which means you pay yourself a monthly salary of like, I don't know, $900 or $1,000 per month, effectively.
It's crazy, right?
And is it worth it for 2 years to do this, you know? I don't know, man.
Exactly. That's always that. I do like a roof over my head and food. And on the other hand, there's crazy people who are like, my passion is everything, which is valid. But it's the sacrifices you're willing to make. And I think you're right, absolutely right to say, I would even go further. It's not almost always a bad idea. It's like 99% of the time, it's a bad idea.
Yes.
To quit your job. Because not only does Steam take their cut, right? And then if you're a freelancer or if you have no job, you get taxed at your normal rate that your country does for individuals, which is way higher than a company. If not, you have to create a company. Then you have to figure out how you'll file tax returns, how you do accounting. It's a whole thing in and of itself. And
yes.
people need to keep this into account. So right? It makes sense that you keep it into account and keep developing it as a hobby. But so far, you've made
Yeah.
good progress.
Yeah, the thing is, I still wanna make it a demo, and I don't know, at some point, if the demo does well and people love it, and I might even create a Kickstarter, I don't know, and make it like a full experience. But I'm not keeping my hopes up, because I know, especially in times of AI, I'm actually counting on it that someone will just go and make a game like that and monetize it well and market it well. So I'm not trying to win the race, but instead my focus is now, I'm just going to work on this game because it's fun to work on it.
And I think that's one of the most noble and good goals anyone as an indie dev can do, right? Because it's going to keep you happy. You're not going to burn out like a lot of people do. That's a big concern as well. I'm a little bit distracted because I'm looking at the itch page. I recently saw somebody mining in real life with a pickaxe. And I see that the mining animation of the individual is like accurate. They raise the pickaxe and send it way up over their head. Did you watch videos of mining to make it that accurate, or?
For multiple hours.
Oh,
yes.
My
Yes. Literally on the left screen, I had multiple GIFs. So basically, I created videos. I looked up videos and then I converted them into GIFs. And on the left screen, I put on all the GIFs of people mining. On the right screen, I had Sprite open, and I would really try to pixel frame by frame how that might work. Yeah.
One by one. You mentioned that you work on this project once a week. How do you balance this with creating, for example, the add-ons that you've done for Godot, the game jam template? Or is it kind of that you give yourself one day in a week to work on whatever you want? And sometimes it happens to be this, sometimes it happens to be something else.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because it's almost a bit selfish that I have these add-ons, because I needed these add-ons for my game. And I noticed that without these add-ons, I physically can't continue my game, because the Godot doesn't offer some of these aspects that I require. So I started creating these add-ons, and then whenever I feel like, this feature might be nice, I work on it. Of course, when it comes to bugs, like when there are like critical bugs and people are creating issues on GitHub saying like this, my game doesn't run with this add-on, I basically drop everything and work on it. Like, to me, it's very important that my add-ons are stable, at least that. Yeah. When it comes to like new features, it depends. Also how I feel. Yeah.
And then how do the YouTube devlogs and tutorials mix into this as well?
I think initially I did it as some sort of self-expression kind of thing. In my head, I was like, it would be cool to have a video like this. And I created a video like this. Yeah. But then I got a lot of feedback, like honest feedback from people who were like, well, why are the first 40 seconds of this just B-roll? What is this? Like, I'm watching, I want to see you building the game, not watch some coffee dripping into a mug. Like, what is this? So I actually toned down the B-roll massively over the years. I will not stop doing YouTube videos. That's for sure. It has been, I think, a long time already since the last devlog. And people assume, he hasn't uploaded in a year, which means he moved on now. Like, I will. The
game is dead.
Yeah,
GG.
Dead game. GG. Press F in chat.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the next video will come eventually. I have also a lot of things going on in my personal life. I got married. I'm moving places. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that people might be unaware of. There is a reason why there is not a new video every month, but it doesn't mean that there won't be a next video.
Of course, it's always difficult managing online expectations, because people tend to equate individuals to collectives at times, and they expect the same quality, the same frequency, and any number of things.
Yeah.
When in reality, as you say, right, you got your life, you got different things going on. Anything can happen, right? One day you're sick, next day it's your honeymoon, then, layoffs, get off on a new job. You just never know.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, going back to your game, I want to ask what your creative process is like. You mentioned that earlier you were struggling to define if it was just a sandbox, if there was a specific goal, what the game loop is, or where the game loops where within the game. What is your creative process like nowadays? Do you have a vision for the game?
Yes. So I know basically which game mechanics I want and which game mechanics I don't want. So for my game, with game mechanics, I mean, for example, movement. So I want the character to roll, perhaps to swim as well, to run and walk, to mine, to forge, and to fight. Like these are like the general activities you do. Then I have systems like forging or mining attached to that to realize these mechanics. It's hard to say. Like the process generally is, okay, what do I enjoy myself doing, right? I love this idea that you have a dude who's a nobody, you know, like some naked dude with a cloth, you know, and a club.
Yeah.
And with sheer effort, you can make the character a giga chat somehow over time. You know? Okay. And I like this idea, this transformation. Like, especially Diablo, you have this concept as well, right? You are just this character getting even killed by some rats, but eventually you are this almighty glowing being. Although I'm not a big fan of this high fantasy magic theme, I want to keep my game quite low fantasy. Although it has dwarves, it will be very non-magical actually. Yeah, because I like this idea that you can mine new material, forge your weapon, and then with this weapon you go adventure into the cave to beat the next challenge, right?
Yeah.
And to create this like reward function.
Yeah. Sounds really nice. What has been the biggest challenge for you so far in developing your game?
I think inexperience was the biggest challenge, because when I started with Godot, I didn't know about Godot best practices. I didn't know about how to keep things simple in Godot. Over the years, I honed a lot of skills in Godot, and also generally software engineering as well. What I'm currently basically doing at this moment is rewriting the entire UI system and the entire inventory system from scratch, because 80% of what I've built 4 years ago is actually not needed. It can be drastically simplified. A perfect example of learnings, Godot learnings. When I started the game, I wanted different materials in the game, like copper, iron, gold, right? Let's say those three. So what I did, I opened Sprite and created assets for all three different materials.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, I want to create a pickaxe out of these materials. So I created 3 different pickaxes, and I created 3 different hammers. And then you can also smelt these into ingots. So I created also 3 different ingots.
Yeah, that gets
and
out
then
of control.
Also, depending on, and then you mine, I also want the item to be visible on the character. I don't like this idea that you have equipment and you can't see it. Like, I want people to see the equipment equipped. Like, oh, this little pixel there, I forged this, you know? Even if it's just a pixel, it should be still visible. But then I was like, oh, hang on a minute. If I now want to add a new material, I have to like create 50 assets. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
I don't have time for this. So this is where I came up with the mineral system that I'm gonna probably show off in a separate devlog. Not the next one, but the one after.
Yeah.
Where I basically separate the material from the item. And then via procedural shader, so with some tricks, graphic tricks, you can actually change the appearance of an item based on the material it has. And also change the attributes of the item.
Cool.
And then the next step will be to have something where you can even merge different items together to create something new, like bronze out of
copper and tin.
Yeah, out of
RuneScape.
copper
Let's go.
and tin. Yes. Yeah, but also like other combinations, right? And then this will just work. I don't have to create 5 different pickaxes, but there's just one pickaxe, but it can be out of different materials.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and this was like a huge to come up with this. It took me many years, because
that's what I wanted to ask. Like, how was the process to find that solution?
Basically failing a lot. I had to first do it the hard way to understand, okay, like this is not really needed. I can just have the concept of materials in my game. Yeah.
I see. All right. We talked about the biggest challenges. What about your favorite part of the game, or your favorite thing about the game?
I think my favorite part definitely is the dwarf, the first NPC that I'm currently designing, called Thalnor Callbeard. He's a very grumpy dwarf and blacksmith. Has some unfortunate past. I can't unfortunately talk about it because it would spoil the story.
Fair enough.
But he is very grumpy and depressed for a reason. I found this amazing voice actor, Rob Sharp, who is voicing him. And I hired basically him to record voice lines. I hope that players, once they experience the demo, also start to like him a lot. A huge inspiration is the Onion Knight in Dark Souls. I don't know if you played Dark Souls. For everybody who has played Dark Souls, there's this warrior called the Onion Knight. And he's a very interesting companion who reappears in the game in various places. And you start to build a sort of companionship with him. And I want Thalnor to be something similar to that. That you see Thalnor in the game multiple times and learn more about him and his motivations. Yeah.
I like that name, Thalnor. You mentioned also that through the years you've learned a lot. You've parallelly grown in your profession. Have the things in your profession directly influenced how much more you improve as a game developer, or not that much?
I would say so. I think it's a two-way street. So, of course, in my main job, I'm a software engineer and I work for companies and don't build games. I'm not a game developer in my main job. Mm-hmm. But I think there are ways how you can bring in the creativeness of game development into your day-to-day job, but also vice versa, the professionalism and the analytical parts into the game development process.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I would love to see. I mean, we can already see your code in the add-ons, for example. It's interesting to see how you structure it. And just a note here, I looked at your Git commit history. That is fucking insane. That is consistency. Oh, that looks like a garden. It's just green all over, except for June, July, as soon holidays. But the rest...
Oh, yeah.
That is so impressive. How do you manage to keep it up, to be so constant?
Oh, this is the thing, right? It's like the other way around. It's not like, oh, I'm doing the thing so I can keep it up. No, it's like I just like to work on stuff, and as a result, it appears to look like I'm very focused. But I would actually say consistency is actually my biggest weakness. Like to have like a consistent schedule for game development, I would love that. And I'm actively working on trying to achieve this, but it's currently more motivation driven or more inspiration driven at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. I have one last question for you, Miguel. And that is, what advice would you give to other people, aspiring game developers or current game developers out there?
I think it is more important that you try something. So try building a game, but also try to focus on a smaller scope. So, for example, joining a game jam can really help. And on itch.io, you can find various game jams that are happening all the time, because this really helps you to hone your game dev skills. I think the most things for game dev I've learned during game jams, actually, not on my main game. Like most of the learnings I got from doing game jams.
And that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much, Miguel. Thank you for your time. Please go ahead and plug your stuff. Where can we follow you? Where can we buy your stuff? Where can we support you?
So my YouTube channel is Bitbrain Dev or Bitbrain. And I'm also on Blue Sky as bitbra.in or Bitbrain. And I'm also on Mastodon under the gamedev.place /Bitbrain. Bitbrain Dev. Yeah, /Bitbrain Dev. And I will work on a new YouTube video. First, I have to move places. Yeah. This will take a bit. But the next video will come. I'm also working on tutorials. Yeah, one is a Godot 4 lighting tutorial that was unfortunately blocked due to a Godot bug with shadow occlusion, which is now fixed. It will come into Godot 4.4. Yeah, there will be a new lighting tutorial. I also have a parallax scrolling tutorial that I still need to record. The script is ready.
Nice.
maybe this week. I have to see when I record it. And yeah, basically stay tuned. I will keep working on my Dwarven game, and hopefully maybe in a few years, the demo will be ready for public consumption on Steam.
Nice. Super looking forward to the game, and especially looking forward to the YouTube videos. I love them.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Miguel, and thank you to everyone who stopped by to listen today. This was Godot Unscripted. Cue free. Settle something for me. You're German, right? Because my wife saw your name, Miguel, and I'm like, he's Spanish. But then I was looking at itch.io and these games, some of them are in German.
Yeah.
Is it half and half?
I'm confusing a lot other people because I'm very Spanish in terms of my name and also my upbringing. Like my dad is strongly Catholic and he's from Spain, but my mom is from Germany. So I was born and raised in Germany. I don't speak Spanish. Well, I
No.
understand a little bit, un poquito, but it's very like if two people speak in Spanish, I can roughly understand what they might say, but it's not that I can join in and like talk along. Yeah, I'm still
Gotcha.
I want to learn it, but yeah, I'm too busy. So
for sure, I've seen everything that you do. That makes sense
man.
to me, right? Time is the currency we all need. All right, then let's start it out. The plushie. It's so cute. You got it? Oh, I love it.
Yes,
I have.
my little coding pal.
I love him. I got this one from GodotCon. Right? Somebody
that's
was
cool.
distributing them. But I need to buy the plushie.
Nice.
It looks so
Yeah,
much.
I think you can't buy it. I think you can't buy it anymore.
What? Limited
It was
edition.
a one-time thing. Yeah.
I was gonna buy it originally at GodotCon, but the shipment got like stuck or something. So it wasn't there in first.
That's unfortunate.
Tragedy.